All right, we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your favorite wrestling fan here, Eric Rodriguez, every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. We're here to talk about the greatest thing in the world, professional wrestling, all the action inside and outside the ring, backstage curtain calls, rumors, dramas. We talk about superstar and active statuses, injury updates. We talk about contract negotiations, extensions, and new signings. We talk about promotions from WWE to the GCW to the NWA to the New Japan Professional Wrestling. If it makes major news in the world of professional wrestling, we talk about it here on this show, 1,010%. So make sure you guys like and subscribe to the network so you guys can get some notifications whenever we go live. All right, so without further ado, let's jump on into my fourth segment. We got some Bret Hart talk. It's always good to talk about Bret Hart. Watching him growing up, he was pretty badass. He was like he was the standard of WWF/WWE. And it's a damn shame how it all went down. With the whole Montreal Screwjob thing, it was interesting. It was, it was Bret being Bret, but at the same time, Vince not holding up to his word. Bret Hart was set to make he was set to, I think it was 50. I think it might have been $50 million for 10 years, which would have made him a WWE superstar for that long. And he could have probably had the most championships if he would have stayed in WWE. And I definitely believe that 1,010%. But anyways, during the Monday Night Wars, you saw Bret Hart be kind of the face of WWE. You've seen it kind of land not too well with the whole Hulk Hogan thing and the steroid scandals and all the talk about women being mistreated in the wrestling business in WWE. Neither here nor there. Obviously I'm not getting into that. But Bret Hart, he was a family man. He was a family man. He was like that NBA superstar or the NFL quarterback that gets interviewed after the game. Then you bring your kids on, and then everybody's like, "Damn, okay, can really invest in some some love for this for this individual." But it just wasn't meant to be. Destiny is destiny, and Bret Hart obviously kind of got the crap end of the stick at that one. Like I said, I recently watched a Broken Skull session when Stone Cold Steve Austin was interviewing Bret Hart. It was it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool, and WCW definitely. I feel like if they would have did the Bret Hart character a little bit better. You could have definitely had that Bret Hart going head to head with his rival Shawn Michaels through promotion for the promotion rivalry. Like the Monday Night War is more than just a war. It's something that personally happened to Bret Hart. And then on the other side in WWF, you had Vince McMahon, you had Paul Levesque, you had Shawn Michaels, these guys who literally just kind of did you in, and I feel like wrestling fans would have ate that up. But Bret Hart even said himself, he was like, "Oh, it's it could have been something so beautiful, but it thanks to bad story writing and creative decisions and idiots like Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff, all Bret Hart's words. The Bret Hart character could have definitely been better and damn near could have saved the business. So." Do I believe it? Bret Hart was a star. He had so much momentum riding up until that Montreal Screwjob. And like I said, it just sucks. It just sucks that we, that WWE fans that only watch WWE kind of got robbed. A lot of big fans of Bret Hart, I feel like, switched to WCW and they saw like something that wasn't like WWF, which was more family friendly. And then they were like, okay, I'm not really going to invest time into this. I'd rather lose one superstar than lose a whole roster like The Rock, like Mankind, like, you've seen those guys in WWF, Paul Levesque, Triple H, and all that, D-Generation X. So, the more practical thing to do was just be like, okay, hey, no more Bret the Hitman Hart, But, still want to stick to WWF. WCW could have definitely exploited the politics in WWE with Hart getting a decent storyline and, a more successful, more prominent title run. The Attitude Era obviously was too strong to defeat at the end of the day. And, WWE did adjust from that family friendly into that demographic of young adults, kind of soaking in what was making WCW so much successful, but at the same time still trying to be a little bit more moderate. But during the Attitude Era, there's some pretty damn crazy things, pretty crazy things. Bret Hart claimed that when he joined WCW, he should have been in the ring more with Hogan, Nash, some of the veterans of the company, but they put him in the ring against someone who liked to hurt people. Here, like I said, his words, not mine. He was talking like a gorilla, like Bill Goldberg, and I was like, oh shit, like it's crazy, that's wild. But obviously we all knew what happened with the Bret Hart. Goldberg claims that he told him the kick was coming. Bret Hart got kicked in the head. That's the end of Bret Hart. He could never step into the ring again thanks to that concussion. He just, wasn't the same wrestler. His equilibrium was off. He felt like he was like constantly out of it, and he was forced to retire at an age where he could have definitely been wrestling for about 20 more years. And obviously you knew that his bankroll kind of took a hit, because instead of being paid to be a wrestler, then now all of a sudden you're on the shelf and you get paid to do special appearances. And like I said, obviously it's not the same kind of money. So Bret Hart, he still to this day he still holds a grudge. Bill Goldberg still to this day calls Bret Hart an arse. Says that he can believe whatever he wants to believe, but it was an accident. It was an accident. And it could have been an accident, yeah. But all of it kind of reflects on how WCW with these new superstars ultimately didn't really train them that like a WWE or WWF superstar. They didn't. They kind of just there was a lot of time when they kind of threw them to the wolves. And you're going to be in a squash match with Bill Goldberg, and Bret Hart felt like he has had so much experience within the wrestling ring that there's really no plus side or a positive edge in terms of booking and storyline for him to go up against Bill Goldberg. So it was crazy. Bret Hart's run in WWE and WCW, sorry, excuse me, could be viewed as a huge disappointment. There was poor creative direction. There was a lot of creative inconsistencies. He wasn't viewed as the guy. It was never, clear. There was always Hogan and Nash that always ran the show. Obviously, you find out nowadays that they had a creative clause in their contract where they can basically say who they're going to lose to, what they're going to do next. And sometimes you kind of have to let the creative people be the creative people, let the superstars be the superstars, wrestling inside the ring, not in the boardrooms. So it was, like that's kind of doomed to start. There was a lot of stars in WCW. It was hard to share the spotlight, and especially with the direction that WCW was going with. They were into a lot of promos, and they were into more or less craziness inside the ring. Nobody wanted to see a tactician. Nobody wanted to see a hardcore wrestling match. No one wanted to see these two, like a submission. It was Bret Hart was like ground game. He was ground game, very technical wrestler. He did the high flying moves, from here to there, but he was like a submission specialist. So it was it was kind of crazy, but I feel like that also was a huge factor of him not quite like fitting in. There was a political climate. Obviously, backstage politics in WCW made it notoriously difficult. Bret Hart was at odds with management and other wrestlers, which led to him, which led to hindering his push and overall success. The fan base wasn't really fond of Bret Hart. Like I said, you bring in this guy. WCW was a little edgy. Their content was a little edgy, and you kind of have this guy, and it doesn't really seem like he fit. Timing, WCW was already kind of declining in popularity. Some say that he was before his time in WWE. Bret Hart definitely thought about his match in WCW, and he definitely thought his skills weren't really appreciated. weren't really appreciated. Like I said before, it was more or less just kind of what the entertainment factor, kind of that's what Eric Bischoff and the creative in WCW wanted to accomplish more than having somebody wrestle in like a 20-minute wrestling match. But Could he have saved WCW? I feel like it could have happened. Who knows? Maybe it could have helped a little bit more, but more or less, I feel like it was it was rotting from the inside out in terms of creative and stuff like that. And when it comes to that, sometimes you can't you can't fix it. All right, guys, talked a little bit more about Bret Hart than I initially planned to. Now we're gonna move on to my fifth and final segment. We're gonna talk about Kehlani Jordan turning heel in NXT. Do you think it's a good or bad idea? We're gonna talk about it when we come back. So do not go anywhere.